All right, we are off and running. It is the New York Giants squad show. We are back. Big Blue back home after back-to-back crushing losses. We'll see if the home folks can get some good cooking. We'll see it, and we'll do that next.
I'm Patricia, trainer of Locked On Giants. And can a Giants legend's word be the spark needed to get a very good defensive player going in the right direction?
I'm Mark Collins, two-time Super Bowl champion. Hey, listen, the season ain't over. You still got a shot.
Let's go, Big Blue. It's the New York Giants squad. Everything New York Giants every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the G-Men. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. The Giants Squad Show starts now.
All right, folks, we are back. It is the New York Giants squad show. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's the usual folks back. It's Mark, it's Patricia, it's Jay. And unfortunately, it comes after another loss. The Giants still licking their wounds after the Philadelphia loss. You know what? They're still licking their wounds after the Denver loss as well. Patricia in the leadoff spot, back-to-back losses. At least they get to come home. But again, we have to lick the wounds and pick up the pieces again.
Jay, I've got to correct you there. They're licking their wounds after the loss to the officials. Was that not the worst officiated game?
Thank you for bringing it up.
I mean, come on. I mean, look, I don't expect perfection, but some of those calls and non-calls, and I don't normally, look to the officials because look, you shouldn't even be in that position where the officials should determine the game for you. But goodness gracious, when you've got to deal with that on top of everything else, and I've said many times before, the Giants right now not good enough to overcome mistakes. And, you throw that on top of everything. But, to your point, looking ahead, they're coming back to MetLife Stadium. They've won the last two home games. So that's something to look forward to. Who knows? I mean, and the 49ers have been up and down. They've won, they've lost, they've won, they've lost. I think that's gone on now for the last 5 weeks. According to that pattern, they're due to win. But again, you never know.
Yeah, Mark, you never do know. And it's funny because obviously they're, as we said, licking their wounds and picking up the pieces after back-to-back crushing losses. We did it after the Denver game. How do we pick up the pieces? Now we're doing it after the Philadelphia game. How do we pick up the pieces again?
Well, you have no choice. You got to bounce back week by week. And, just to piggyback on what Patricia said, that game was so poorly officiated. And I'm not saying that was the reason the Giants lost. I mean, they got their ass kicked straight up. But the bad play call officiating didn't help it any. A couple of turnovers here and there, a couple of calls would have made the game maybe closer and possibly give the Giants a chance to win. But on the front part of the question, how do you lick your wounds to come back and win and get over those losses? 2 games with different outcomes as far as how they lost. One was a complete meltdown in Denver. And then the other game was a thorough ass kicking by Philly, compounded with 2 running backs running for over 100 yards. And we talked about this before the game. I was going, if I was the Giants defense, I want them to run the ball. But you got to stop the ball, stop the runner. But what I did not expect were 2 guys to have over 100 yards rushing and thoroughly control the game and dismantle the Giants defense. But, you got to get over it. You got San Fran coming in, who's, to me, not the best team. And they're beatable, but you got to find a way to figure out how to get it done.
We will get to San Francisco. Patricia, and I'm so glad you brought it up. I didn't think we'd do an hour on it, but we need to do several minutes on it. And that's the fact that the tush-push may have died on that play, and rightfully so.
Please let it be so. I hate that play with a passion, okay? Not so much that it can't be defended. I mean, and when teams have tried to defend it, they've been called for penalties and, we're going to award you a touchdown. And, we saw the Vikings actually try to defend it where they had a guy lying down in order to stop the Eagles from getting low. Well, tell me how that is not dangerous, how that's not setting a guy up for an injury. So, look, the whole thing with the tush-push is unless you're going to officiate that thing correctly, and the officials have yet to do it, And it's not like, this play just suddenly, popped up. Get rid of it until you can figure out how you're going to officiate it, what parameters you're going to use for it. Because right now, that play is just, it's got to go. It's a rugby play. It's got to go.
Mark, your thoughts on the tush push? And I know it's not an Eagles week, but obviously we all believe that is the end of it.
Yeah, it's the dumbest play because you can't officiate it. You can't stop because just when you think defensively, you stop it. Well, the play stopped. I mean, even it's not stopped. Is it a continuation of a play like rugby? Even watching rugby, you can't find the ball unless somebody extends it out, like what Hurts did. You think the play is over, but he extends the ball, which means the play is still going. Knock it out of his hand, recover the fumble. But then the refs say, well, his momentum stopped. It's hard to officiate. I think it's the dumbest play, and it never should have been allowed. It should have been stopped after year one because you can't officiate it. Number two,
go ahead. Not
too many teams can run that play effectively like the Eagles. And with the false starts that they have all the time, it finally got caught up to them this year because people finally called it out, teams finally called it out, and they still won't call it. But anyway, I'm done with it. I hope this is the last year and good riddance.
Get rid of it now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I hadn't at first because you mentioned a good point, Patricia, about how it's tough to defend. And that's not necessarily a reason to get rid of a play. But the fact that you cannot officiate it is very much a reason to get rid of a play.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw the replays. How many times did the Eagles get away with false starts? Too many.
Yep.
Right. And again, they say, well, it's not dangerous. Nobody's gotten hurt with it. Not yet. But I digress a little bit. The consistency in officiating it. I mean, you're calling forward progress. When do you determine when forward progress stops? I mean, it's just that alone should be reason to put the thing on the back burner and keep it there.
Yeah, and I don't think they were too far away as far as numbers of votes. Wasn't it pretty close?
It was two, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe this is the play that
They'll get it this year.
They should. They should.
Yeah. So again, that will it's something the Giants, assuming they don't meet the Eagles in the playoffs this year, we won't have to see again. Thankful for that. But again, we also have to deal with injuries, and obviously that's a huge part of the game. And the latest one, Mark, obviously is Cam Skattebo, a killer in more ways than one. Once again, we have to pick up the pieces, lick the wounds from a killer injury, and it sucks.
Yeah, and it was sad to see. And, I got a lot of questions. How, as a player, you say injury like that to your teammate, how do you regroup and play? And that is the hardest thing that people don't understand how we do it. But we're conditioned, no matter how gruesome the injury is, the game goes on. Even in practice, somebody gets hurt in practice, they tell us, okay, move the drill 15 yards and continue to practice. So mentally, it's in our heads to do so. And you saw the reactions of the players during that game. You saw Jackson kind of almost melted down, and some other players, it's traumatizing. But that whistle blows. We got to focus on get back to playing ball, no matter how it is, how drastic and tragic it is. But with that injury, the Giants got to move on. I feel bad for Cam. He'll bounce back. Hopefully, he'll be close to back to normal as possible next year. But an injury like that to his ankle, he's a cutter. He needs that to bounce back, to cut and stuff like that. I hope he comes back 100%, but I know he won't because that's just a gruesome injury, and that's on a joint, and that's bad.
Yeah. In addition, Malik Neighbors had to wait for the swelling to come down to get his ACL surgery, which just happened a couple of days ago or yesterday, whatever, a couple of days ago. That being said, we know these are two key players, and we're all excited to see them next year. But Patricia, they have to come back healthy next year after awful injuries. So it's not a given.
No, it isn't. But, and by the way, was it me or did anybody else think that was a hip drop tackle on Skattebo? I thought that was a hip drop. Yeah. I could be wrong.
Yeah, close, very close enough. Yeah.
I thought it was. But that being said, Yeah, I mean, look, all you can hope for at this point, medicine has come a long way. And, the good thing about being a professional athlete is you have access to some of the very best resources out there. And, Cam Scadaboo already, he was in the building yesterday. Brian Dable talked about how he showed up on his little scooter, putting around the building. He was in team meetings and stuff like that, doing whatever he could. So he might not be on the field, but he's very much going to be there. And I would not be surprised if the kid makes a request to be on the field during games, which he won't be allowed to since he can't, he's not very mobile right now. But the thing that they lose the most without Cam Scadaboo is that energy on the field. Now, behind the scenes, that energy is still going to be there. This kid is, got a great mindset, but it is a crushing loss. And, as far as being ready and Malik Neighbors being ready, if they attack their rehab, which I'm sure they will, I see no reason why they can't come back and be contributors.
It's interesting because, as we know, it's the first year for Jackson Dart, so it's really tough to get a read or at least diagnose things when you're a rookie. Obviously, this is a year that will not have Neighbors and Cam, Mark. That being said, how do we grade Jackson Dart the rest of the way, considering the two stars he needs on offense to perform well are not there?
I think he's done enough to show that he's very capable of being the franchise guy. With some of the weapons and definitely without all of his weapons. He's shown enough of the leadership part and what he does on the field. So that doesn't affect me. That doesn't bother me one bit. Would you want the Giants to surround him with other players before the draft? Yes, you would. But I don't think the Giants are going to do that because they don't want to spend draft capital on bringing in top flight receivers for him to do so. So he's shown enough for me. I don't need to see any more. Just stay healthy. Just make it through this season without any injury so we can see him come back next year with his weapons around him.
I think it's a perfect segue, Patricia, into this. Do the Giants need to add veteran pieces to get an accurate reading on Dart's first year, or can they play out the string without adding anybody?
I think they can play out the string. I mean, look at what Dart has done without Neighbors. Neighbors got hurt, in the second quarter of Dart's first start?
Yep.
And Dart was just named, NFL Rookie of the Month, Offensive Rookie of the Month. So, and you look at this, what he's accomplished, it's quite impressive considering, he didn't have Malik Neighbors. And, just imagine how much better he would be with Malik Neighbors on the field, with Cam Scadaboo on the field going forward. So, like Mark said, the Giants, unfortunately, are not in a position to give up draft capital. They don't have any comp picks projected to them next year. They already don't have a a third round pick because they traded that to get Dart. If they want to get a quality receiver, they're going to probably have to give up at least a second round pick. I don't see the Giants doing that, going from round one and then skipping day two of the draft and then going straight to day three. I don't see that happening. So I just think they're going to have to play out the string with what they've got.
That being said, that's where the tight ends come in, Mark. And obviously it's been not necessarily feast or famine, but they've been really good or quiet. So the combination of Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger, they need to step up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've been playing very well, no doubt about it. A couple of drops by Theo. But when I watch these games, the Giants don't have anybody on the outside that can threat on the deep ball. And when you don't have that, you got to work the tight ends, crisscross, all this stuff like that. You got to focus on the tight ends. If the Giants had an outside threat that can open up the tight ends even more, even better. But even without the outside threats, the tight ends are getting work and they're making things happen. So what do? You gotta manipulate the game to a point where you can't threaten on the outside. So what do? You gotta manage games, move the ball, score points if you can, and rely on your defense to get stops. So we'll talk about the defense later. They gotta go hand in hand. Right now, I'm not really seeing that. We saw what happened against Denver. And we saw what happened with Philadelphia. At some point, those two entities got to come together. Clock management, run the ball, whatever, keep the clock running, give your defense a rest. And on the defense side, get some stops to give your offense a couple of more possessions to do what they do. Either get 7 or you get 3, but somehow they gotta get together and make that happen.
All right, we'll do the defense next. Obviously, it begins and ends with Shane Bowen, and obviously we have to get into Dex, who once again a topic of conversation. We'll do all that next. All righty, let us tell you about Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. How about that? I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. It's quick, easy, and honestly, my favorite way to follow along with football. I love checking projections like Josh Allen for more or less than 270 passing yards, or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, we are back, and obviously it's the Shane Bowen section of the show because we do it every week. Should he be fired? Well, he's not going to get fired, at least not this week. But there was discussions about that after the last 2 games. Patricia, pick us up where we left off. Should Shane Bowen be the DC right now?
Right now, it's Thursday. They're not going to make a change. Should he be the DC moving forward? No. Because I've said this before, I'll say it again. Explain to me, and maybe I'm missing something, but explain to me how Deonte Banks has regressed from his rookie season, how Bobby Okereke has kind of regressed, how Tyler Nubin hasn't developed, how Dexter Lawrence is struggling, and the list goes on and on. You look at some of these guys and you say, what's going on? Drew Phillips is another one. They're not getting optimal results from Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland. Are they being put in the best position to succeed? Now, look, to a degree, some of it's on execution. But I have questioned since day one if Shane Bowen's schemes and philosophies are a fit for what this team has as far as talent. I don't think it is. I think the results are there, as far as, or the proof is in the pudding. This should be a top 15 defense, and they're ranked at the bottom in every major statistical category. So, if that doesn't answer the question, I don't know what else will.
Mark, it's all yours. Defense.
You're only as good as the people you have working under you. Okay? I don't know if Shane Bowen is coaching the defensive backs. I don't know if he's coaching the defensive line or linebackers. Yes, I do. He's not. So you look at the position coach. Who's coaching those positions where these players are not progressing into the defense? When I played, we had Bill Belichick as a defensive coordinator, and he coached the defensive backs. And in that room of defensive backs, we had some damn good players. Everson Walls, Terry Kennard, Perry Williams, Myron Guyton, Greg Jackson. I can name quite a few more. So he was the DB coach and the DC. Before he became the DB coach, we had Lynn Fontes, who was a damn good position coach as well. The DC teaches a scheme. He has an overall scheme. The position coach, it falls on the position coach to get to teach the techniques, what the DC wants from what he wants from the DC. So as we call for Shane's job, I've seen flashes of what they can do as a collective on defense. But you got to look at the position coach as well. Are these coaches teaching what Bowen wants? Sometimes they look great, and sometimes they look like crap. And when we talk about replacing Shane Bowen, who are you gonna get there? Which position coach is going to be your DC? It's going to be the line coach, the DB coach. Who are you going to get there? Or do you go, you know what? Let's ride this out. Or let's say Bowen leaves. You fire him in the midstream of the season, and the position coach takes this job. What's that position coach going to be like? Is he going to change the whole scheme? Hell no. It's going to be what it is there now. You can't just change defensive philosophies. So you're stuck with it. What I would do if I were in that situation, if I was a DC, I'm raising hell on my position guys. You know what we're trying to teach. It's not being taught because the DBs, sometimes they look good, sometimes they don't. Linebackers, sometimes they look good, sometimes they don't. Same with the D-line. They got to be held accountable as well. So we can talk about firing Shane Bowen all we want. Now, it's got to be done internally from the defensive side, from Shane talking to his DC, and Brian Dable. Point to Shane, hey, look, dude, get this stuff corrected because your job is affecting my job. So you got to clean this stuff up. I could go into it more, but I won't. I think we'll move along.
Well, I was going to say it's a perfect segue into the injuries because obviously that's something that he's dealing with. Yes, we all think that Shane probably deserves to lose his job, but to be fair, there's injury concerns. There's Adebo and Holland, obviously Flott and Art Green back there as well. Patricia, they're banged up.
Yeah, they are, and they're facing the number 2 ranked passing offense this weekend. So, they just picked up a guy off waivers from, I think it was from Cleveland, I want to say, a cornerback. The name escapes me, so I apologize. I don't have that for you. And they have Corey Black, who's going to probably get, a second start. He's a rookie. Yeah, that is a concern because you know what? If those guys can't hold their coverage, the pass rush is going to be rendered ineffective. So I'm curious to see how they approach that if they go into this weekend's game without Adebo, without Javon Holland, without Cordell Flott, without Art Green. They've got Nick Jones on the roster. They got this kid that they just picked up from Cleveland. They've got Corey Black. Deontay Banks is out there. Deontay Banks last week, not a problem, believe it or not. Then again, he wasn't attacked as much. So the rest of these guys, they got to pick it up, especially in that defensive secondary, because it is a banged up unit and they are facing a very good passing offense.
Yeah, huge test this week for the defense. Obviously, Mark, we talked about the injuries, but again, got to step up. Jobs are on the line now. This isn't college where you're guaranteed stuff. Jobs are on the line here. Got to get going.
Oh, absolutely. But you got to play with who's next. There are ways to beat great, even good passing teams. When you have great defensive backs, or even just some guys you just picked up off another team's roster who are young, you can schematically still beat a team, especially if you just mix it with some zone, very little man coverage. You can man once or twice, maybe 3 times. It all depends on what you call and when you call it. So the Giants are in that situation defensively. So what do? Well, you're not going to throw a kid who just got to the team, and say, "Oh, go learn the coverages in 1, 2, or 3 days." No, you play the basic cover 2, some cover 3, some cover 4. You may zone one side and do a under 2-man cover. You try to protect that. And when you do stuff like that from a schematics with zones, you're relying on that pass rush to get there. So, San Fran are going to do a lot of crossing routes. That's what they do. So as with crossing routes, you're going to run into a zone. If you try to man cover crossing routes, you can't cover man coverage on crossing routes. They catch the ball at 5 yards, you're going to run away from DB. It's almost impossible. So you reduce zones. That's what I see the Giants doing. Can it work? Yes. Will it work? Definitely, if your pass rush can get there. And that's why you got those guys, predominantly, they say on paper, the best pass rushers in the league, but you're only as good as what you put on the field, and you can perform that way. And that's what the Giants got to do. So we'll see if it happens.
All right, so now we have to segue into Carl Banks versus Dexter Lawrence. If any of you out there have been with us the entire way, you know how much we have discussed Dex this season. And of course, it comes to a head. So, Patricia, you're in there every day. What has been the reaction to Carl Banks versus Dexter Lawrence?
Amongst the players, not a whole lot. Dexter, though, took some offense, I think, to what Carl had to say. But you know what? I've known Carl for a very long time, as has Mark. Mark's not actually known him longer than I have. I do not believe that Carl Banks set out to maliciously attack Dexter Lawrence or single him out. What he was doing, I think, was challenging him, saying, Dex, look, you are better than this. You've got to reach deep within yourself. You're the leader of that defense. You've got to reach deep within yourself and be better. Because we've talked about all, like you said, Jay, Dexter Lawrence hasn't looked like Dexter Lawrence. So that's what I think Carl Banks was trying to do. Now, Dexter, when he was asked question after question, after a while, he snapped and he said, hey, the guy's delusional, used a 4-letter word. No, Carl Banks knows football. Okay. He's not delusional. So, if he struck a nerve with Dexter Lawrence, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe now Dexter Lawrence says, you know what? I'll show you. I can be the Dexter Lawrence. I'll show you that my opponents do respect me. I'll make you eat your words. And that's, I think, what maybe Carl was trying to do with Dexter Lawrence.
All yours, Mark.
I don't know if I get your points, Patricia, but I don't know if Carl was doing that to motivate Dexter. That was his purpose. Carl was watching football. And I played with that guy for 5-6 years. I know Carl. We just spoke to him a few days ago. I was in New York. He knows the game. Carl's just doing his job. Carl is seeing what everybody else has been seeing, including us. We've been seeing how Dex has been playing early in the season. Now, with that being said, what part was he lying about? I mean, they drop stats. Oh, he's been double teamed here, whatever. Carl knows football. And it reminds me when I was with the Giants and never had it to the point where it came to that. And during camp, even during the season, 86, 87, 88, I was talking to Dick Lynch. Dick was a corner with the Giants, famous corner, all-time great Giants. And he was doing the Giants TV stuff and radio stuff as well. And me and Dick had a great relationship. Dick knew it. He'd come and talk to me about anything. And it never got to a point where it's, oh, you should be doing this, whatever. We'll talk. Mark, how you doing? I'm doing all right. And I'll maybe pick his brain and ask him a question. And he'll ask me questions back and forth. Off the record, by the way. Being a media guy myself, that's how you got to be able to do stuff like that. So Dick knew how to come at players, myself included, and talk. And it's never been to a point where you're doing this bad, whatever, just talking. And some of those conversations went that route, off the air. So I get where Carl was coming from, and I know Carl has carte blanche through the locker room and can talk to players. I tend to think some of the players in today's NFL, they get thin-skinned and they can't take criticism. Now, with that being said, I'm sure if some of the comments that were made about Dexter was from a player who never played and never had prominence in the organization, he would have blew up immediately. It's Carl Banks. Carl's doing football, and Dex lost it at the end of these deals. And that stuff's going to work itself out. It just does. Is it going to motivate Dexter? You're damn right it is. You know why? Because it's from Carl Banks. It's from Carl flipping Banks. one of the best linebackers in Giants history. So, yeah, they're going to get together and hammer it out. You know what? I lost my cool. I lost cool. I love you. I love you too, brother. They're going to hug it out. That's what happens. If that's needed for Dexter Lawrence to get to where he was a few years ago, then so be it. Use it. And I know Carl very well. Carl's going to stand by his comments. And he needs to, because this has been well documented. That eye in the sky, which is called the camera, it don't lie. It doesn't. You could call them delusional or whatever, but that eye in the sky ain't lying. We see, or we seen what we saw, and we continue to see. Prove them wrong. Prove all of us wrong. It's on you to raise your level to get to where you need to be, because this defense, it sounds funny. It runs through you, big fella. It does. Whether you like it or not, it runs through you. So you got to step it up.
All right, let's settle in on a few minutes, focusing in on the 49ers. Obviously, we need to figure out who their quarterback is going to be this week. We'll do that next. All right, time to tell you about Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every single model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail. From the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery, you can make every drive feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence throughout almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, we are back, and we are ready to focus in on the San Francisco 49ers, who, as we said, are also coming off a loss. Purdy or Jones? Looks like it's going to be Jones, Patricia.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you need when you're playing offense, I think, is to go back and forth between quarterbacks. That being said, like I said in a previous segment, they have the number 2 passing offense. Now, what I am watching for, to be honest with you, is the run offense. Christian McCaffrey has struggled. The 49ers, I think, are ranked 30th in run offense. The last thing I want to see is another get-right game. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles last week had a get-right game. Saquon Barkley had a get-right game. So when I look at the matchups, that one, the 49ers run game versus the Giants run defense, which has, we talked about, got spanked. That to me is what I'm keeping an eye on, because that run, everything flows through that running game. And if they can set up play action and all the things, the deep shots down the field, that's it. That's all she wrote.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think at first we all say, who do we want to face, Brock Purdy or Mac Jones? And we all right away say Mac Jones. But as you said, the passing offense and the offense in place of Brock Purdy has been pretty good, Mark. Yeah,
it's been great. But I tell you what, after seeing what Philadelphia did to the Giants last week, guess what they're going to do? They'll run the ball. Whoa, it's coming. So, they're going to run the ball, okay? They're going to set up the play action. They'll get all that done. I bet you, San Fran right now, they're probably like, man, why did we sign Purdy to that big contract when Mac Jones is like this here? They kind of regret that. But Mac Jones has stepped in and has done a great job. And I don't think Purdy's getting his job back no time too soon. They look very efficient, very effective. Now, to get them on track, they're going to establish a run. And what better chance to do it than come against the Giants after giving up 100 yards to two running backs in Philadelphia. So, McCaffrey's not having a great season, but they're going to try to get on track by running the ball, open up their play action pass game, and get the ball downfield to really a depleted Giants secondary.
Yeah, the weapons you talked about, CMC and obviously George Kittle as well, who's back. There will not be easy road to hoe, so to speak, for the Giants. So with those guys there, Kittle and obviously C-Mac, a difficult task, Patricia.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned Kittle. Didn't the Eagles tight end, Dallas Goedert, he had
Sure did.
2 touchdowns I think, last week? The Giants in the middle of the field, that has been a problem for them more often than not just this year, but in years past. It's like, a tight end gets going and, good luck stopping them. I don't know why that is. I honestly don't. I mean, is it the coverage? Is it, the execution? Is it a combination of the two? I really can't seem to put my finger on why tight ends just go crazy against this Giants defense.
It's a good question. And as we said, Kittle coming back, Mark, this could be dangerous.
Yeah, because the safeties can't flip and cover. That's an easy one. I mean, if you got safeties that can cover, you could negate tight ends. But the Giants don't have that. So this is what you get. That's why these tight ends are Pro Bowl guys. And plus, Kittle, let's be honest, he is a premier tight end, no doubt about that. And if you can't stop him, and the San Fran got some guys on the outside who could get open, and they got a running back who's very hungry to reestablish himself as a premier player. That's a recipe for disaster for any team. But the Giants are next on the schedule, so hopefully the Giants will do something to mitigate some of those problems.
Shanahan's a good coach, is he not?
Oh yeah. Don't forget that factor too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and to both of you, I mean, Shanahan is a premier coach. I think we can all agree on that. Is he not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Very good play caller, good strategist. I mean, a lot of times he's playing chess while the other guy's playing checkers. So you got to give him his credit too.
Yeah, Mark, I was just going to say exact same thing. Shanahan is brilliant. We could all hope to have a coach like Shanahan one day. Yeah,
and he knows how to exploit teams' weaknesses. So with this game coming up, as I said earlier, he has a couple of options. Where does he want to attack first? Does he want to throw the ball first, or do you want to run the ball first? And based on what he saw last week against the Eagles, I'm thinking he's going to run because San Fran needs that running game to be established if they want to move forward. So what do? You're going to run McCaffrey. You want to get him back on track, just as Philadelphia did with Saquon last week. So that's what I'm looking to see. But it's up to the Giants' front seven to stop that. If they could do that, and force San Fran to become one-dimensional, not that they'll work 100% because the Giants are hurt on the back end as well. But you want to make a team fight left-handed if they're right-handed, right? So you got to do that. If they can do that, it gives the Giants a good chance of winning the game from a defense perspective.
Timing is everything. They just lost to the Houston Texans. I think we were all surprised by that. It was 26-15 in Houston. So on top of the fact that we get the Niners, it's the Niners off a loss, Patricia. Probably one we didn't think was going to take place.
No, absolutely not. But you know what? I don't think any team really thinks they're going to lose. So, I mean, you could say probably the same thing for the Giants. They probably thinking, well, we beat the Eagles the first time and we're coming off a loss too. So, it's going to boil down to who plays a cleaner game, who wants it more. The Giants, the last couple of games, like I said, they've won at home. So that they got that going for them. They're going to be in front of their home crowd. The 49ers, are they a better team? Yes. Are they the best team in the NFL right now? No. Are they beatable? Yes. But the Giants, they've got to stop hurting themselves. You look at what they've done in these losses, turnovers, breakdowns in coverage. I mean, you name it. They've done stupid penalties, pre-snap penalties, even the coaching decisions, some of the, clock management stuff and whatnot. The Giants are not good enough to overcome a litany of mistakes. And that's what they've got to try and curtail if they're going to give themselves a chance to be competitive and win these games.
I'm trying to find a way where we can sort of edge our way in and get a win here. The 49ers are 5-3. Seahawks and Rams are 5-2. very close division race. Next week for the 49ers, Mark, the Rams. So maybe they're looking past the Giants and we'll surprise them. How about that?
No, and I'm gonna tell you why. That if it was an AFC team, yes. Oh yeah, baby. Even though the Giants are up and down struggling, to be honest with you, it's an NFC team. It's an NFC win. It's a conference win, and that means a lot when it comes to playoffs. Divisional teams are a half a game, mean more half a game, but a conference game, it's big. So I would not be looking for San Fran to be looking past the Giants, not just because it's a conference game, but the Giants they see the Giants as a tough team. They've seen some of the wins that they had. How they played, how they lost in some of the teams they lost to. So they find them a formidable foe. And San Fran can't look past anybody. They're not world beaters, but they see the Giants as a formidable opponent that can beat them, especially at home, especially when San Fran has not looked like the San Fran of old. So they're not looking past anybody.
All right, the following stat I just did not realize, so I wanted to bring it up. The Niners actually lead the series all time 22-21, Patricia. So this is the 44th time they will play. Giants trying to get back to 500. How about that? I was surprised to see it.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, if there's any consolation, what's the Giants' record in the postseason against them? They had that big, I think a couple times, right? If I'm not mistaken, they beat them in the postseason. But yeah, I mean, look, all-time series record, it's a nice piece of history, but what happened 20, 30 years ago doesn't really matter this week. It really doesn't. That's why, one of the reasons why I hate the strength of schedule argument. The teams that you saw last year, they changed, just like your team changed. So, I mean, I just find that kind of a lame stat to use. But look, the bottom line is the Giants just got to come out, play as clean a game as possible, cut down on the mistakes, have a sound plan, and just be better than what they were last week. I mean, last week, and, the run defense, we talked about that being terrible, some of the coverage breakdowns they had. Offense, can a receiver please get open on a consistent basis? That's been a problem. I mean, and look, you look at what Philly did last week against Jackson Dart. Did you happen to notice that Jackson Dart wasn't as effective as a runner last week? Do you know why? Because Philly said, oh, you know what? We blitzed the heck out of him a couple weeks ago. We're not going to do that now because that kid burnt us when we blitzed the heck out of him. So you're going to see copycat stuff going on from this point forward, and the Giants got to counter that.
Interesting stuff. Mark, when you see that 49ers logo, as we put a bow on this, what are your thoughts? Because obviously back in the day in the 80s and the 90s, when the Giants were good and the Niners were good, it was great. Even with the Eli years, it was great, but it just doesn't feel like that anymore. Am I wrong? Am I off on that?
No, you're on point. Has the luster worn off a little bit? Yeah, mainly because the Giants have not been the beast in the East like in the past. So it's only a rivalry only when both teams are still there. Well, one team was better over the last few years than the other. So, but the rivalry is still there to a point. But the luster isn't, because the juggernaut in the West is no longer the San Francisco 49ers, and the beast in the East is no longer in the NFC, is no longer the Giants. So now you're talking about historical stuff, which is cool. I was part of it. Eli and those guys were part of it. Yeah. But now, honestly, it's just a flipping game, and that's sad to say, but it's just a game that I wish had some historical and meaningful stuff to it, but it doesn't. It's just a game that hopefully the Giants can win.
Yeah, well said there. And again, it's just doesn't have the same feel. All right, we have to take a quick break. The trade deadline just days away. We will dissect next. All right, we are back and we are ready to discuss the trade deadline, which of course is Tuesday, November 4th. Patricia, obviously, we figured there might be a trade or some sort of addition in the receiving room before Tuesday, but the days get closer. So now I don't know what to expect.
I don't think there's going to be. I really don't. I mean, they just had in on Tuesday a bunch of receivers and defensive backs in. I mean, what are they going to trade? I mean, unless you're talking a player for player trade, and I don't see them doing that. I mean, if anything, maybe I see the Giants moving Jalen Hyatt, who was a healthy scratch. Maybe they move him. I don't think they're going to move Kayvon Thibodeau, despite what, has been reported. Could Evan Neal maybe be moved? Possibly. But, what are you going to get for him? Maybe a 7th-round pick at this point. So I don't see the Giants being buyers, because also you look ahead to next year with the salary cap. Their salary cap isn't in good shape, folks. I hate to break this news to you, but it's not in good shape. They're going to have to shed a lot of dead weight on that salary cap. So I would be shocked if the Giants make a big acquisition. I'd be happy if they did, but I just don't see from a business perspective how they're going to fit it.
It's interesting because in baseball and basketball, even in hockey, we know about how nervous guys get around the trade deadline, especially guys with kids and houses and all that stuff. That being said, how difficult is it, Mark, to forge ahead knowing you only got a couple of days left, you could be gone? Admittedly, it's not the same in football as it is in baseball. But again, interesting times.
Yeah, but that's the business. And that's a lot of that's something that a lot of fans don't think about. It plays a big part. Now, when I played, we didn't have to worry about that kind of being traded during the season, because it didn't happen until pretty much mid 2000s.
Right.
They started trading players. So, but I can only imagine. I equated to trying to make the team during training camp, being cut, moving your family to a city, and then you're there for 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden you get cut and you're no longer part of the program, the organization. You got to move because someone else took your job. And that's where a lot of the stress of playing pro sports, you talk football, baseball, basketball, you're there for a week or two. Next thing you know, you're gone and somebody's coming in your spot. So the stress, week by week, it can wear on a player. As I said before, I never had to go through that. But you have to perform every week. And even if you perform every week as a starter or as a backup, now what is against you is you make too much money. They want to get rid of your contract and bring somebody else in. And let's say you're a starting corner who making good money, but the team needs a left tackle or a linebacker or whatever. They can move you out because of your salary and bring somebody else to take your spot. It's a lot of stuff, man. And today's league, today's sports, and football in general, is tough. It wears on you. It's taxing. And you still have to focus on your job because your opponent you're playing next week. It's a trip, man. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, Patricia, you mentioned Kayvon, obviously a name that's been out there. I don't know what to make of it. Is it selling high, selling low? I mean, what would the point be? What would the benefit be to trading Kayvon?
Well, he would probably bring you the most in return. I mean, he could probably bring you, some premium draft picks. Remember, a few years ago, they traded Leonard Williams, who had a lot of mileage on his tires and who was approaching 30. And they got, a 2nd and a 5th, if I remember correctly. So Kayvon Thibodeau doesn't have that much mileage on his tires right now. He's a lot younger. I think he's 24, I want to say 25, something like that. So he would bring you a lot. But here's the thing. You've got to ask yourself, if you're the Giants, do you want to start creating holes unnecessarily? For years, I know I've talked about the Giants need 3 solid pass rushers. They need to figure out how to use all three correctly. That's another story. But they need 3 solid pass rushers. Well, they finally have that, so why would you want to get rid of one? Now, some people will say, oh, he's going to want a big amount of money. All right, well, let him earn it. And if he balks and he says, oh, I'm holding out of the spring and the summer, he's only hurting himself in the long run because the Giants will control his rights. So, he's under contract for next year. They picked up his option year. Then I believe the Giants can franchise tag him for the 2 years after that. So theoretically, they can keep Kayvon Thibodeau for the next 3 seasons. And, it is what it is. And they're in the driver's seat.
It's interesting because obviously and Mark mentioned it, guys looking over their shoulders, especially guys who have been there for a while in regards to trades. Mark, again, as you said, and it bears repeating, it is not an easy situation, especially one, when you're struggling. And then 2, with the trade deadline, it must not be easy to go to work.
No, it's never easy. Not like that, not in those conditions. So you try to go in and focus on your job, and whether you got a high cap number or you're not performing, whatever the situation is, it's hard to focus on your job knowing that the trade deadline is coming up and your name is mentioned throughout media and throughout fan bases. Those are things are heard by players. They'll tell you no, but they're listening to it. It's there. And if the players can hear it from fans, upstairs listening as well, knowing that you have a high cap number. Secondly, whether you're performing or not is kind of irrelevant. And number 3, they know that you're expendable to a point because you got a high cap number, you're not performing, and they know you're not playing well to expectations. So how do you focus? You do the best you can, and you just do what you do, because everything else is out of your control. You just got to focus best you can and try to do the best you can and win.
I was surprised. It's both of your favorite parts of the show. I was surprised the line's only 2.5. Giants are getting 2.5, and Vegas also thinks that it might be a high scoring game, over under 48.5. Patricia, do you see this as a high scoring game? I was actually a little surprised it was as high as it was.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree.
I would be surprised if it's a high scoring game. The point spread, I can understand why it's so low, even though I still, I'm not going to sit here and say I know how Vegas comes up with these numbers. I just don't get it. But yeah, I mean, the 49ers, like I said, they've been up and down, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. The Giants, they've had some problems, but they've looked, you never know what you're going to get from them from week to week. Are you going to get the team that dominated the Eagles in week 6 and look, dominating against the Broncos for 3.5 quarters? Or are you going to get the team you saw in New Orleans or the team you saw last week? You just don't know what you're going to get. It's what, that old saying, life's like a box of chocolates. Well, that's what it's like with the Giants. Are you going to get the nougat, or are you going to get the chocolate mint? And which candy is my favorite.
Of course. We knew what you meant. Mark, do you expect a close game?
Yeah, and I get it. I'm starting to get this gambling thing. And I back in the old days, they used to say, well, the home team is always favored by 3. Right. And we said it's 2, the point spread is 2. It makes sense to me because neither one of these teams have shown that they're dominant in anything, other than San Francisco's passing game. But, the home team, I would take the Giants will win by 3, so because they're home. And I'm wearing my outfit because this is the legacy game.
Love it.
I do the throwback. So in honor of the legacy game and throwback uniforms, I'm going to pick the Giants by 3 because of the uniforms. How's that? That's how much I know about gambling.
It is a classic uniform matchup between the Niners and the 80s, 90s Giants. It means nothing, but these uniforms, I've always said, the white or the blue, the best in all of sports. Patricia, am I wrong?
No, they're not wrong at all. I mean, look, when I see these uniforms, I think of those great 1980s teams, and I just hope that the play this week does those teams of the 1980s justice. I mean, I like it. I never was a big fan of the NY on the helmet, and I know that that's a throwback to the history.
Yeah.
But, Giants, I mean, that to me, NY is just kind of generic. You could be New York Yankees, New York Mets, whatever. I mean, no Giants. That's how we know the team. Big Blue, the Big Blue Wrecking Crew. I mean, come on, I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. I cannot wait. I wish they'd do it more often. I wish they'd make it permanent. Mark, if the Giants win, what happened?
I think if the Giants win, they played an almost flawless game. They ran the ball effectively. They took advantage of short passes, whatever San Fran is going to give them, take what the defense gives them. And their defense stopped. I would say they stopped the pass, because I would think San Fran is going to try to run the ball, and when they force the pass, the defense steps up with a lot of zone, and the pass rush got to the quarterback. That's how the Giants will win this game.
Same to you, Patricia.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I mean, and I'll add to that, don't make any stupid mistakes. I mean, how many times have we seen a false start, a pre-snap penalty? Now all of a sudden, second and short becomes second and forever. So you've got to play a clean game. You're not good enough to overcome these mistakes, So that's number one. The run defense, that is probably my number one concern, followed by the banged up defensive secondary. Can those guys hold up? Can they take right angles that they need to take? Can they be aggressive? And don't make the mistake like we saw last week, for example, Corey Black, who's a rookie. He went for the interception instead of trying to knock the ball away. Sometimes, it's great if you come up with the interception, but sometimes knocking the ball away is just as good. So just little things like that. You can't have them adding up. Otherwise, you're going to sink your battleship.
It's interesting. We've talked about this multiple times over the last couple of weeks, Mark. The NFC portion of the schedule here for the Giants. Obviously, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Chicago, Green Bay, and Detroit. So doubly important to get wins during this stretch because, as we talked about before, conference games, hugely important.
Oh, absolutely. This is a hell of a gauntlet. It's a hell of a gauntlet that I hope the Giants are ready for. They failed test 1 against Philly. You can't fail test 2 against San Fran. You got to start. This is a huge stretch. If they can get 3 wins out of this, that'd be great. It looks tough. If they can get 3, I was expecting one last week. Get one this week. That would have been 2. Still one against San Fran or Green Bay and Detroit. That'd be great. Or Chicago, great. But man, this is a tough stretch, hell of a gauntlet, one game at a time.
For what it's worth, folks, I know this is going to annoy both of you. The Bears, because that's who the Giants have next week, the Bears are 3-point favorites right now over the Giants. So who knows? I don't even know who the Bears play this week. Who do the Bears play this week? Probably should have looked that up. They play the Bengals. They're in Cincinnati. So it should be interesting. Anyways, it was a fun show. Hopefully the Giants will turn things around. For Patricia and Mark, I'm Jay. And again, we'll be with you immediately following the game on Sunday. Have a great week, everybody.